lot of youngsters may be going thinking, oh, actually teaching to swim is actually really quite easy, but it's not, because there's so much more to it than just teaching somebody to do front crawl and backstroke and so forth.
I have friends who have little children and they send them to swimming classes. I ask
Yes.
about that quite often.
Yes.
And I had some interesting observations about that. So
Right.
basically, firstly, I've noticed that some parents have a tendency to send that child to the classes and then not even verify or ask what they are learning, how
Yeah.
is it going, what the progress is like.
Yep.
Then also assuming that the child will be from now on forever safe in the water because they know how to swim.
Yep.
And thirdly, they just seem like putting all the responsibility on that teacher
Yep.
and none of them on themselves. And sometimes even they can't swim. So it's like uh, if the child was struggling, what, they're going to be relying on the kid to
Yeah.
save them?
That's it. Yeah, which is why I go back to that love and hate relationship with these franchises and starting young, because I think they feel as that, you know, parents do it from their heart, from the goodness of their heart, in the sense that we have to do swimming lessons because it's a life skill, which obviously we both know and everybody knows that it is, and it's really important to do. But I call it water wisdom, and I feel that children's lessons need to be changed in the sense that we're teaching him to be wise in the water and understand the water. And that includes the education of parents, because yes, they are, unfortunately, they are sitting poolside, or sometimes they will leave. I've had experiences of where teachers are telling them, the parents, they have to go because little Johnny is not listening and crying out for mummy. So the only option is for them to leave. So that in its sense again is another whole other topic that I have massive opinions about. But they're either on their phones, if they are poolside watching, they're either on their phone chatting to their friend sat next to him, because their friend's also in the water with their child. And there is far too much ownership on the children, and I just don't agree with it, because it's all about layers of protection. And it's all about the layers of protection is having swimming lessons so that the child has exposure to the water. That's really essence of it, is it having exposure to the water as much as possible. And then the parents understanding why and what they're doing in the water, because then once they're not in swimming lessons, they can continue with that in time when they're together as, say, a family in water time. But they also need to know what drowning looks like, and also how they can deal with it if either themselves, their child, or another child gets into unfortunate circumstance where they need help. And I think that's also what's happening, is that nobody knows how to help somebody if they are in difficulty, because they're not listening, they're not watching, and they're not asking any questions. And there's a number of swimming schools that just don't offer any other follow-up. They just basically say to their parents, oh, you know, Joanne has passed stage 2 and she's now going on to stage 3. And the parents like, oh, yay, great. And they have no idea what that means. They have no
Yeah.
idea what they've supposed to, the child has gone through in order to get now to the next stage. Or you've got the parent that is like, well, why isn't she in stage 3 yet? Or why hasn't she gone up to stage 4? And the teacher's just like, because they're not ready to. And it gets to a point of where, well, her friend's now moved up, so therefore my daughter or son must be ready to be moved up. And they just don't have that understanding because they're not watching.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's the responsibility of the swim schools and leisure centres to provide education. And it's that have information on your website, or provide them with newsletters or leaflets about, we have awareness weeks, we have drowning prevention week, we have water safety, learn to swim week. There's plenty of opportunities to be able to provide this information. And it's really quite sad, to be honest, because now in America that they're out of school, and they have been for, for a couple of weeks now. Already we've got reports coming through that these summer camps have ended up in tragedies, and it just shouldn't be the case. We know, don't we? Everybody knows. When you're adding water into the mix, it's one thing can happen. It literally is life or death situation. So it's not like football
So,
where you miss a ball and you fall on the
yeah.
ground, or you know.
So I've got a very specific question relating to that. To give you a context, I have another friend who just sent their child to learn to swim, and when we were talking about being afraid of water, having water anxiety, she specifically requested that I do not mention the word scared in front of her child.
Okay.
And it's like basically overprotection from, when you kind of cozy up, make the world more, softer for that child than it actually is. And so there's a alternative scenario to this, which is, for example, my mom's approach was, she was so paranoid and so overprotective, telling me about the dangers of water, that I ended up being really terrified
Right.
of the, which in hindsight now, I think it's truly justified, the anxiety, because the water can be really dangerous and can really hurt a person. You can drown, you can have all kinds of scenarios that are freak accidents, and you end up hurt.
Yeah.
So I think she was in her right to warn me as a mother,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, making me aware of those. So
Yes.
my question to you is where that balance lies between freaking your child out of being like, oh my God, be careful, be
Yeah.
careful. Look, I'm almost 40 years old, and my mother, we've been on holidays literally 1 year ago together,
Yeah.
okay? And when I went to jump to the water, she was like, be careful, watch
Oh,
out, watch what you do. Like,
amazing.
did you check how deep it is? And I appreciate that it comes from love,
Yes.
and it's very justified because it
Yes.
can be really dangerous. But
Yes.
what is the balance between,
Yeah.
being giving that education about what's
Yes.
possible that can go bad,
Yeah.
and then the other side is like, oh, don't worry about it, just like
Oh,
everything will be
whatever.
fine, don't even consider the word scared, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Absolutely. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can approach this, and I've worked literally with hundreds of children that are petrified, hundreds of children that are just full blazing, I'm jumping in, whatever afterwards. And I've also worked with hundreds of adults that have had those extremes too. So that's why I then call it water wisdom too, is that it's educating the child to, in the sense of that it's love over fear. And I think because the amount of fear that's been put on a child, of the sense you've got to have swimming lessons, otherwise you could drown, or you've got to have swimming lessons, otherwise this implication is going to happen. And it's extracting the fact is that you can still love water but be aware of the consequences and the hazards and the risks that can be happened with water. But it's understanding that when you are in the water, and different ways of you moving your body, and how, if I jump in the water, how do I get back to safety? So adding in safety skills. So it's a case of understanding you as an individual, who I am as a person, how I am with myself in the water, and how the water is in itself too. So it's those three elements that really need to be taught about, because it's okay for a child to be scared, and it's nice to say to them, I understand that you are scared, and I can really feel that you are scared with this, but we're going to work through this together. and I'm going to help you overcome that fear of the water, and we're going to do it in a slow way, and we're going to work together in the sense of that you're going to be doing it progressively with them. And that's why I talk then about the trust element, is that you don't want to trick the child, because if you're tricking the child, then again they're just not going to see that you can be trusted, so they'll be very wary as to what you're going to be doing with them. So a case of, I've seen this guy that is in America, and he teaches, and he's always now online. He TikToks, he does lives, he does all this, that, and the other, and people think he's absolutely amazing. But he tricks a child. He will say to them, "It's okay, I've got you. I won't let anything happen to you." But then all of a sudden he will let go of them, or he will push them towards the wall, and then they have to fumble for the wall to find safety. Now, to me, that's tricking the child, because they're
Yep.
entrusting him to say. So that's where the fear comes from it as well. And then talking to a child at their level and being understanding is where they then feel heard, and that you're listening to them, as opposed to saying, "Oh, don't be silly. You've got nothing to worry about. Why are you scared? Why are you being so silly being scared? There's no,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, that devalues who they are and what they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are feeling scared, they're feeling scared. But
Yes.
we're going to overcome that with you. And then the children that are overly confident, it's what can we do in order to keep them busy in the water but safely, again, which is why I've created the orca for that reason. And even for the child that's scared, it helps too. But it's then reining them in to say, "I love the fact that you want to jump in all the time, like 50,000 times, and I love the fact that you want to go under the water and you want to spend most of your time underwater. But let's do this." And or you put it into a game, or you put it into an activity, is that they're maybe swimming on top of the surface first and then going under the water and so forth.
But
So
would you mention to them? So let's say you've got a child that is not scared whatsoever. They love the water.
yeah,
They're extra confident. They do crazy flips and jumps and
brilliant.
all kinds of things. Would you or would you not, or how would you approach telling them about, let's say, the dangers of, for example, jumping to water that is too shallow
Yeah.
and then breaking their head, like the neck or whatever? How would you go about doing that?